Detroit do ordain and establish this charter for the governance of our city, as it addresses the needs of all citizens and affirms our commitment to the development and welfare of our youth, our most precious treasure, instituting programs, services, and activities addressing the needs of our community, fostering an environment and government structure whereby sound public policy objectives and decisions reflect citizen participation and collective desires, pledging that all our officials, elected and appointed, will be held accountable to fulfill the intent of this charter and hold sacred the public trust, acknowledging our blessings from God. We pray our efforts will be accepted.
Declaration of Rights. Number one, Detroit City Government is a service institution that recognizes its subordination to the people of Detroit. The city shall provide for the public peace, health, and safety of persons and property within its jurisdictional limits, free of threat or harm from one another or city agencies. The people have a right to expect aggressive action by the city's officers in seeking to advance, conserve, maintain, and protect the integrity of the human, physical, and natural resources of this city from encroachment and or dismantlement. The people have a right to expect city government to provide for its residents, regardless of zip code, affordable, inhabitable, and safe housing, job opportunities, reliable, convenient, safe, and accessible, affordable, and comfortable public transportation options, whether walking, biking, driving, ride sharing, or using public transit. D, access to parks, urban green spaces, and recreational facilities and activities. E, cultural enrichment, including libraries and art and historical museums. F, clean air, soil, and waterways, safe, clean, and affordable drinking water, and a sanitary, environmentally sound city. Number two, the city has an affirmative duty to secure the equal protection of the law for each person and to ensure equality of opportunity for all persons. No person shall be denied the enjoyment of a civil or political rights, of their political rights, or be discriminated against in the exercise thereof because of race, color, creed, national origin, immigration status, age, disability, sex, sexual orientation, gender expression, or gender identity. Number three, a person shall have reasonable access to all files and records of the city in accordance with applicable laws. Number four, the people have a right to know the rules and regulations governing dealings between the city and the public, and to a means for the review of administrative decisions.
Number five, the city's police forces are in all cases and at all times in strict subordination to the civil power. It is recognized that individuals within the boundaries of the city of Detroit have a right to be free from police misconduct, including excessive police force and racial profiling, and shall enjoy unbiased, humane, and dignified treatment from agents and agencies of law enforcement. Number six, the city shall endeavor to require application of the principle of one person, one vote to the policymaking body of any regional or other multi-jurisdictional organization which taxes or provides any service to city residents or takes any action affecting the city's interest. Number seven, the enumeration of certain rights in this charter shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And number eight, the city may enforce this Declaration of Rights and other rights retained by the people.
And that was the preamble and the Declaration of Rights and the latest revision to the Detroit City Charter. Hello, Detroit in the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Lower East Side here in the city, powered by Eastside Community Network and sponsored by none other than the Ford Foundation. Now, a content partner to the new BridgeDetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people on the east side of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We drop a new episode every week, so be sure to turn on those notifications. Making headlines across the city these last few days are issues related to the latest draft revision of the city charter. The governor and the attorney general responded to the Charter Review Commission by rejecting the latest revision. What does that mean? What happens next exactly? Here to talk to us about the latest charter revision is Commission Member Denzel McCampbell. Denzel, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. Also here to discuss the latest is radio and television personality, a born and bred Detroiter, our friend Steve Hood. Steve, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
I'm glad to finally be here.
Yes.
We hear finally in that comment, and I apologize. It occurred to me that as we talk about these political matters, there is nobody who is more in the know, in the background, in some of these back rooms having conversations than my lifelong friend. I say lifelong because I was born at 14, Steve Hood. So Steve, I'm excited to have Mr. Detroit Wants to Know and and other iterations of identity here on this show today.
Other things.
Other things.
Yeah, Steve is master of shade. Finally, I'm here. Yes, Steve, we're happy to have you. Listen, how's everybody doing before we get started? Let's just do a quick human check-in. How are you doing, Donna?
I'm on vacation, so I'm doing really well. I'm on, it's not a staycation. I actually left home, and it's, not a vacation because I'm not doing that much work, although I am doing Authentically Detroit and a couple other things. And it was really, really, really hard getting out here. We were supposed to leave Sunday, and, I had a proposal due Monday morning that kept me up, and I was, so we left Monday morning and we're here. So I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well. Had a pretty good and restful and fun weekend. I was able to get away this weekend and spend some time on the west side of the state. Went to a farm, man, dressed up. I posted a picture on Facebook with a farmer get up with a Detroit flair. You know what I mean? And so
cowboy, right? Not a concrete cowboy, maybe a Detroit cowboy.
Detroit cowboy. It was a lot of fun. Denzel, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's a lot going on. I missed we had an 80-degree Sunday. I missed that. I was inside doing some work, but I'm doing well and happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Steve Hood, how does this blessed day find you, sir?
I'm going broke doing neighborhood stabilization. Really, I bought the vacant house across the street. I'm rebuilding that, and late last fall, I bought the house next door, and it had a horrible blighted structure, boathouse on the back of it, and so last week I had my gorillas come in and tear it down. They climbed up and they pulled the dilapidated part off, leaving just the superstructure. Now, what that automatically did was raise my neighbor's property values along the canal because there's no longer nastiness hanging there. And a good friend of mine reminded me that I've been looking at this thing for 30 years, at the dilapidated structure for 30 years. So it's actually really different looking at a clear view down the canal without rust. And so I was talking to my lead gorilla today, and he said to me, I said, man, none of my neighbors have thanked me for doing this, for upping their property values. He said, man, I can cuss on this, right?
Yeah, you're good.
Shit. They were stopping by one after one, yelling across the canal, thank you for doing it. Thank you for doing it. They're just not telling you. I'm like, you freaking greats.
You know what that means, Steve Hood? That means you need an external communication strategy.
No, I don't. No, I don't. I have it. It's right here. But see, here's what's really interesting in Jefferson Chalmers. Not a week goes by that I don't get at least 2 calls to buy one of my pieces of property. What I did was I decided I was going to control my immediate space. So I control 28,000 square feet of property, the property next to me, the property across the street from me. I control what I see every day on 2 sides. And the third side is bounded by water. 4th side, there's a house where absentee landlord has it. And it's really just nasty. Wish somebody would come along and buy it from him, but he knows the value here. So I'm doing neighborhood stabilization as far as I can go. And it's also how I stop what? Gentrification.
All right, that's good. Hopefully you will also build a seawall on those properties, since the city seems to think
My
that's
seawalls on both of those properties are fine.
Okay.
The seawall on mine is up to Coast Guard up to Army Corps Engineer standards. The one next to me, we actually, when we pulled everything out of there, we were actually able to shore it up. You know, nobody knows the things you don't see. So we've already done that on I've done my part. The one next to me though, that I said still messed up, my absentee landlord, is still messed up.
Okay.
So neighbors in the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood and in District 4, you should know that Steve Hood has been a one-man show doing neighborhood development way in the back over in the canals. When you see him, thank him. Yes. Don't be one of the ingrates that he's talking about.
Bow down to gluteus foot.
All right.
It is time for Fresh Off. This is going to be interesting. It's time for Fresh Off the Press news that we are thinking about. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. We see your emails. We thank you so much for your feedback on our shows. We love every one of our listeners. Donna, Fresh Off the Press.
Speaking of finally, Detroit City Councilman Gabe Leland pleads guilty to misconduct and resigns from City Council. This is in the Detroit Free Press from Joe Gillian. I don't know if I'm saying that correct, and Freight Witzel. Whoa. I mean, what an anticlimactic story. This man has been floating around here, untouched, unscathed, sitting at the council table, making decisions about things that happen in the city of Detroit for the past couple of years. And you want to talk about white privilege? If there was a poster child, his name would be Gabe Leland, who accepted a $7,500 campaign contribution, but will not serve any jail time.
I don't even know how to be corrupt. Who gets in trouble for $7,500?
And then walks away. In a separate statement, he apologized to Detroiters he represented on council and to his family. You know what made me so angry is that when we had a city council person, Monica Conyers, who had a minor son, she did prison time. And yet here this white man is allowed to do neither. Her character was assassinated. She walked away and she was attacked. And listen, I'm not a personal friend of hers. I don't know her on that level. All I know is that she had two sons, right? And one of them was a minor child. Gabe Leland was allowed to walk free, and his attorney not only negotiated no jail time, but he also negotiated the dropping of 2 federal charges. And so here's the corporation counsel, Lawrence Garcia, says the council will appoint an interim council person to represent District 7 during an election year, which is a huge leg up for whoever gets appointed. This is great timing because now during an election year, you have a political entity having the right and authority to replace somebody in an open seat for what should be a contested race. Terrible timing for citizens of the city of Detroit. And, you know, the machine. So this is why I read the Detroiters Bill of Rights. This is why Orlando read it at the beginning of the show, because none of this looks like what we should expect in our city council.
Can I come up Council Street just a minute? You know, I understand that there is a provision in the charter that prevented Council President Brenda Jones for taking any kind of action to rid him of his council appointment, that they didn't have the power to strip him of him being a council person. And so what was really disappointing throughout this entire ordeal, most of city council sat silent. Nobody really spoke to this. And now, since this news has dropped, some council members have the gall now to release statements. I say this, in respect to the charter that does not allow you to strip people of their council member status, I do think that there is something to be said about colleagues and public pressure for a resignation, of which no other city council person called for when this came down. Nobody sitting on that council called for Gabe Leland to resign. And so you have the likes of a Roy McAllister now releasing a statement and calling essentially what Gabe Leland did concerning to him, and that he wishes him the best. Councilperson Raquel Castaneda Lopez also released a statement. I think this is, a disservice to the city of Detroit for us to have a city council person who is under federal investigation and federal indictment still being able to vote on the affairs of our city while other council people sat silent. And regardless of what the charter says, there is no, I can't fathom.
The new reality, though, is everybody is so interested in decorum. We don't fight anymore. We brag about that. Look, we have a council. We all get along. You're not supposed to get along. What you're supposed to do is act on behalf of the people you were elected to represent. And sometimes that means that you have to argue. Sometimes that means you have to call each other out and say, you know what? I don't trust you. And to preserve the public trust, because what's happened right now is so many people just don't trust in government. What say you, Steve and Denzel? I'm almost afraid to call on Steve first. Let me reverse that. Denzel and Steve, what say you?
What I'll say, so I'm a resident of District 7, and now we, yeah, we don't have representation at this point. We can talk about the representation that we had beforehand, but I agree, Donna, in the stark difference that we've seen in the way that city officials have been treated when you have these misconducts and criminal acts come up. I think one thing I'll say for the charter is that we had this discussion about what Orlando talked about, and what we amended the charter to say is that the city council shall actually have at least a hearing to discuss when these type of accusations and charges come up against a member of their body. And this goes for all city officials in that role. So we definitely we had that discussion. I mean, it's so interesting that we find ourselves in an election year. We are after the deadline to submit signatures. You do have a contested primary. You have quite a few people running, and you make a plea deal to step down of in an office that you were already not going to run for re-election in, and you have 6 months left or 7 months left in the term. So it's really that he's walking away for really abusing the trust that he has, abusing his office, and leaving a district of folks without adequate representation.
And after that deadline passed, allowing now the mayor to appoint someone to replace him in a contested and contentious race, from everything I've heard. It's not just in this instance that the wheels of justice run slowly, but they also roll conveniently to the
Does the mayor appoint this interim person?
Absolutely.
No, he doesn't. It's the city council.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, and I think
I misspoke.
Right.
So
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. City council does, but at any rate, you have an appointment in the midst of a contentious race. Steve, what are your thoughts on this?
I have a lot of thoughts on this, Donna. First of all, you're incredibly correct that there are two systems of justice. Okay, there are two justice systems. You see Kwame Kilpatrick going to jail for 28 years, and this guy gets no time for any bribery. I was with Bobby Carmack right after that whole bribe took place. Okay. I was with him, the guy that actually brought these charges that made this happen. And, Leland really hit him up hard. That stuff never came out. The feds never brought that stuff out. It's crazy. So you got two systems of justice there. And like you said, Donna, we do have white privilege. It's horrible. It's horribly on display for what happened at this time. And with the city council actually going out and being able to appoint the successor, it's a horrible thing. So if we go down to the District 7 candidate list. If you give me a second here, I'll pull it up, which I do happen to have it right here because I thought we were
I
talking
have
about
the
something else.
list. I have the list.
Okay, we have Regina Ross, Joanna Underwood, Angie Webb, Fred Durham, John Bennett, Erica Mura, DeQuincy Hyatt, Robert Dunlap, William Davis, Terrell George. So if I look at that list, okay, of people that's running in District 7, all right, I'm giving, if the mayor's people have their way, I'm giving the nod to Durham. Okay. I'm giving the nod to Durham because that is what we understand to be the mayor, who we understand to be the mayor's candidate. So the mayor is still sitting there with Janae Ayers as a vote, Spivey as a vote, Benson as a vote. Let's see, who else is that? McAllister as a vote. So you got 4 right there, right? And then you got to figure out, somebody's going to be on the fence. Is it going to be Tate or Lopez? That's going to go. It's going to flip, get their arms twisted. So we'll see. It just makes it unfair, as you all said. And it's a bad thing. It's a bad precedent. It's an especially a bad precedent because he sat there while they were deciding whether the $250 million bond issue would go on the ballot. He cast the tie-breaking vote to put that thing on the ballot. When we actually sit down there and fought for it not to go on the ballot, he did that all the while under indictment. That's horrible. It's a horrible day in Detroit.
Wasn't there a picture of him having lunch at the Rooster Tail with the mayor? Or was that just somebody who told me about that right before that vote?
Oh, that's somebody that told you about that. I didn't see a picture of that.
Okay, you didn't say, somebody showed me a picture of that. I know I didn't come up with that on my own. So I'm just saying that, you're friends with folks and, I mean, it's politics, right? If you are in politics, you get what you can. But it's disgusting to me. I'm upset by that. I don't think that that's what democracy should look like. We've known he was guilty. Okay. It's not like we didn't know. Did he do it? Didn't he do it? How long ago did he plead guilty? And yet that plea was finally entered into the public record with a deal. And anyway, so Orlando, fresh off the press.
Fresh off the press. Detroit Police Board to get major shakeup this fall. Much like the Detroit City Council, there are a number of incumbents on the Detroit Board of Police Commissioners who are not seeking re-election. So what that means is we'll have at least 4 new Board of Police Commissioners. And here's who will be on the August 3rd primary ballot for the Board of Police Commissioners. Tamara Smith, Joshua Engel, and Brian Ferguson for District 1. That seat has been vacated, will be vacated. District 2.
Do you know?
So the people who are vacating their seats are Commissioners Darrell Brown, Shirley Birch, and William Davis have all declined to seek re-election. So District 1, you have Tamara Smith and Joshua Engel and Brian Ferguson running. You also have, for District 2, Lavish Williams running against the incumbent Linda Bernard. In District 3, you have Cedric Banks and Damian Mitchell competing for an open seat. In District 4, you have Scott Bowman challenging the incumbent Willie Bell, who is also the chair of the Detroit Board of Police Commissioners and a former police officer. You have Michael Farr challenging incumbent Willie Burton in District 5. You have Landis Spencer challenging incumbent Lisa Carter in District 6. And then you have Robert Olive in District number 7, who is running unopposed. Here is a quote from the Commissioner Davis, who represents the city's 7th district, who was elected in the board in 2017. He said he decided not to run for a second term on the board because of board politics. And he said this: as long as you have appointed commissioners and former law enforcement as a voting bloc, I don't see any reason for me to stay. And Davis has been critical of the board's use of appointed commissioners and former law enforcement because he thinks they will always take the side of the police department, and the police commission, board of police commissioners is meant to be a civil oversight. So you have appointed seats that include the 4 at-large board members, Annie Holt, Jesus Hernandez, Jim Holly, and Martin Jones. Appointed commissioners are selected by the mayor. They are not elected by voters. And that's one of the main reasons that Davis cites that he will not be seeking re-election on the Board of Police Commissioners. This is a story in Bridge, Detroit by Bryce Huffman. And it's something that Bridge, Detroit is committed to following, especially in the wake of the calls for reimagining and reforming public safety and defunding the police. We took a magnifying glass to the Board of Police Commissioners beginning last summer when Detroit saw protests every single day throughout the summer in the wake of the George Floyd murder and calls for equity and calls for reform. And there's been so much drama at the Board of Police Commissioners that meets actually every single week. And so number one, I want folks to know that you have 4 commissioners that aren't seeking re-election. But number 2, I want people to know who listen to us that is a public meeting that everybody should be tuned into and going to, because it is the Civilian Oversight Commission that is overseeing the Detroit Police Department. You have a problem with the Detroit, well, it's supposed to be. You have a problem with the Detroit Police Department, you are supposed to take that to the commission. We have covered on this show instances of police commissioners being silenced, police commissioners being arrested at meetings for dissenting against the majority, and Chair Commissioner Bell, who's in District 4, who also sits on the Community Relations Council in Precinct 5. I also sat on that council with Commissioner Bell. This is something to watch, and this is something to pay attention to, because I think that we as citizens and the voter electorate have to do a better job with vetting who we appoint to our Board of Police Commissioners. Oftentimes, this is a race that not a lot of people pay attention to, and people are just filling in bubbles on that Scantron, on that ballot. We need to make sure that people know and understand what is at stake. The future of policing in the city of Detroit is at stake in this next election.
I mean, I'm fortunate to know both of the candidates in District 4. But this is like maybe one of the first times I've known, who are these people? Okay, I've known who the people are in District 4, but I'm just saying, most people don't even know who they are. And we don't have voting blocks, we don't have lobbies, we don't have PACs, we don't have any way of identifying people. And that's the way that you get these people slipped into these races. But I think the whole issue of the charter structure is something that is going to be taken up if we're able to have this new charter approved. Is that correct, Denzel?
Yep, that's absolutely correct. And what we, we had Commissioner Davis, we had the police commission itself, and we had community activists and advocates and community members bringing forth quite a few revisions to not only the police department, but the Board of Police Commissioners. And, one thing we did, we actually, in the charter, you will see, we got rid of appointees from the Charter Commission because of the reason of that the mayor, the chief of police, even in the revised charter, because I know there's a lot of talk that this is not the case. The mayor still is the person who the police chief reports to. The mayor still has the discipline and firing duties of the police chief. So what we said is that, it doesn't make sense for there to also be appointees from the mayor to the police, civilian oversight board for the police, that is over an executive department. So we had, but we also strengthened the civilian oversight of the Board of Police Commissioners. We made sure that they did have the strong investigative power that they needed. We would make sure they had the oversight power of appointees and promotions of the chief, because we had instances and over the last year or two that there were promotions made that the board was not in favor of because there were some significant issues there. So we took actions to strengthen the civilian oversight, but also took actions to really make sure that the structure would provide the oversight that's needed, and you wouldn't have this type of system where it's basically a free pass for the police department.
See, here's my thing. Before we get to see, anytime you have, was it did Chief Craig escort Willie Bell out the meeting? Am I correct? Was that the commissioner? Who was the commissioner he escorted out of a meeting for being out of line?
Well, there were some officers that took
Willie Burton.
and
Willie Burton.
I was at that meeting at Central at Durfee when they dragged him out.
Yes, they dragged him out. And anytime you have police policing the people who police them, you've got a problem.
Well, what happened was Willie Bell, no, the chairperson, whoever the chairperson lady is, she said, get him out of here. And then he got dragged out.
I understand, but you should not have police being able to do that. There's something that's wrong from the optics and the reality of that. The reality is that the police officers and the police chief should act in deference to the police commissioners. Now, if there is a situation where a law is being broken, but the other issue, from what I understand, is just the amount of disrespect on the police commission during the meetings towards Willie Burton. That's what I meant to say, towards Willie Burton, where he is treated in ways where other police commissioners say, this makes no sense. So I'm hopeful that we get a change in the elected commissioners, and also that we change the charter for so many reasons. And with that, I think we probably want to move into the topic of the revised charter, because it seems as though it has received a lot of negative scrutiny from everybody at the state level, from the Attorney General, who has made a lot of assumptions about the integrity of the charter. I've seen people say things like, why didn't they have attorneys review this before they got together? Like, there were a bunch of incompetent people sitting around kicking it, just coming up with ideas. And I think I counted, it was 4 or 5 attorneys that actually sit on the Charter Revision Commission. What's the number?
There are 4.
4.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure.
4 or 5.
There are 4.
Can you tell us the actual makeup of the review commission, the staff, and the legal counsel that is appointed to the commission?
Absolutely. So we have 9 elected charter review commissioners from different aspects of the city, different aspects of careers, right? We have Commissioner Richard Mack, who is a lawyer, Commissioner Holmes, who is a lawyer, I believe.
He's a lawyer.
Commissioner Peters, who is a lawyer. We have Commissioner Winder, who is a lawyer. We have myself, Commissioner Underwood, Commissioner Small, and Commissioner Weaver. And I'm trying to make sure, and Commissioner Jones as well. And then we have a general counsel who, I want to make it clear that all of these proposals that were put into the charter went through our general counsel, and it wasn't that, he would just see it and say, this is okay. We had back and forth on how to make sure that they were legally sound. We have a researcher. His name is Lamont Satchel, who was our general counsel, who was a counsel for the previous Charter Review Commission as well. And we have a researcher, Shamarie Witt, who did intensive research on the proposals. And we also have had a administrative assistant, but she's no longer recently with us as well. So
executive director, did you have a changeover in executive director?
We had an executive director, but he is no longer with us as well.
All right, so Steve, what's your take on this? I know that you are close to some of the commissioners and have had some conversations. What is your take on why this is being received this way? Do you think it is a legally invalid document?
First of all, let me say that I actually had to apologize to my good friend Nicole Small, that in January and February, I was not as engaged in the charter review process as I should have been. I had a lot of other stuff going on. And because I do have some problems with it. First of all, when the Charter Commission comes up with it, okay, I believe that from their perspective and everybody else's perspective, that is actually a legally sound document. These are the revisions that they came up with. So yes, it is a legally sound document, but there are some things in it that will cause Detroit problems down the road. We have a 2024 problem coming up in Detroit when the pensions, the whole pension mess comes back to bite us. Roads and or simply kick the can down the road. Adding levels of bureaucracy actually just serves to make big government more cumbersome. We can't afford that. The next thing is it lessens, it actually almost eliminates the straw man form of government, which we have. Okay, not totally, but it does. And my problem is I don't want to see anybody, white or black, male or female, because I believe the next mayor to Duggan is actually going to be a female, hamstrung by this charter. The selection of the head of the City of Detroit paramilitary force should be the sole purview of the mayor of Detroit. That's what you elect a mayor to do. He selects the head of that paramilitary force, surrounding him with all those people trying to put input is going to be nothing but making it cumbersome. Do I believe that it's a legally binding document? Yes. Do I believe the governor has the right to say that you need to go back to the drawing board? Yes, she does. And I applaud the work that the Charter Commission did do, but I feel remiss that I did not speak out in January and February when I should have during the end of this decision, but I just couldn't for reasons that'll become obvious later.
Right, but I have to be honest. When you say that we need a strong mayor form of government, our government doesn't work for average people and Detroiters. When I even read with the Legislative Policy Review Team, they said, listen, these are things you've inserted details in this charter revision. I'm not quoting them, I'm paraphrasing them. I hope I do a good job of it. I actually have the document open in case I make a mistake. But they said, you have inserted certain requirements in this law that don't make sense or that are better addressed by ordinance. So we agree with the theory of what your change, or we agree with your values and what you're trying to do, but you're trying to do it wrongly. These things are better handled by ordinance. Cool. Then why aren't they handled by ordinance? And and then the other thing, and I want to say this before we move, because this is like my pet peeve of the whole thing, is if you do these things, the budget will explode and then you'll have another bankruptcy. There is no statement in the city charter that says that we have to keep on building playgrounds downtown for rich people, and we have to keep on spending money to help bring businesses in. We have to keep spending money the way we have. I think what the city charter does is articulate priorities such that there's less discretion for the mayor to do some of the wheeling dealing that some mayors have done at the expense of people who live in neighborhoods. And me, I'm in favor of it. So is there an open book checkbook where you can just do whatever you want to do willy-nilly? No. But on the other hand, I think the intent was to restrain the mayor and say, before you spend money on all of these other things, you got to take care of the people first. And the suggestion that we're going to go back into bankruptcy because of profligate spending, there's already a law, I believe, that says the city must pass a balanced budget. You don't even need to threaten people with bankruptcy whenever your municipality must pass a balanced budget. I think isn't that the law right now?
But it's not threatening people with bankruptcy.
It's
the 2024, it's the 2024 wall that we're about to hit.
But that's not what Attorney General Nessel cited. And I want to go back to what is being said here, because the reason we entered bankruptcy had nothing to do with profligate spending. It had to do with profligate credit swaps and irresponsible borrowing that all of the same people who are now saying, wait a minute, we can't afford to do this. Whenever we get to people in the city of Detroit, especially poor people, we get to this thing where we have to really mind our dollars and cents. I'm fine, Steve, if what you're saying is we should not be taking out bonds, $250 million bonds to tear down houses in light of this thing down the road. We should not have spent over $100 million assembling land and cleaning land to give to Fiat Chrysler if we know we're going to hit this cliff. We do these things and we say, you know what, we're going to do these things anyway because this makes good economic sense for the city, and then turn around and say that this charter doesn't work because of that. That's where I have the problem with the conflict.
Can I just, I want to lay a little bit of groundwork before we get into the meat of the discussion. And Donna, we definitely want to return to your point, but I don't want to do our listeners a disservice by assuming that first off, they know what the charter is and what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to function. So Denzel, for our listeners who may not know, what is the city charter?
Absolutely. So for folks to know, when you hear the city charter, and even when I was running for election, I had to tell folks, a lot of folks thought I was talking about charter schools, right? But the city charter is, think of it as the city's constitution, right? It's the charter that we have to govern and lay out the function of our government. And this, Steve mentioned, it lays out if we have a strong mayor system, if we have a city manager type of system, and those ways that we see across the state. And it's laid out by the Home Rule City Act. And what I can say is that what we have done through this process, if I can go through the process, when the 2012 charter was adopted, the charter commission that was before us put a question in that charter because they had sweeping changes, and they also put on the charter the council by districts. So that commission said, well, we are putting a lot of major changes in, so we're going to give voters the opportunity in 2018 to vote on the question on whether or not they wanted to open the charter. Now, I'm going to be honest with folks. I was one of the folks in the camp to not reopen the charter. And, it was passed by a very slim margin. I believe it was less than 1,000 votes. I'll have to double check that, but it was a very slim margin that was reopened. So at that point, you had to have folks to run for the charter commission. We had 3 years to to revise the charter and put forth a charter to the residents. The charter did get off to a rocky start. That's not news for folks, right? But throughout that process, we had an education process that we had folks from the city government, from neighborhoods, from community groups to come in and talk about the various aspects of the charter, why they thought it should change, what they thought should change, what they thought should stay. We have various focus groups of folks who were community members, but also experts on things such as equitable development, civilian oversight, water, and a few more. And then we started the revision, the proposal process. And through this process, we had over 300 proposals submitted, which came out to have over 500 revisions, except to go through the charter. We went through every one of those charters. We went through every one of those charters through an open meeting. We went through those every one of those revisions through a subcommittee meeting, then a committee of the whole meeting. I want to make it clear to folks, and this is why I wanted to make it clear to folks. We sent numerous letters to both the city council and the mayor's administration to engage with us on this charter, to come to us to say what is working well, what is not working well, in the same way that residents and experts and community groups did as well. We did not get robust interaction. And now we find ourselves in an aspect where you have LPD, you have the corporation council, you have the administration, you have some city council members trying to really thwart this effort. And for me, it's disrespectful to the residents that have spent so much time in it. I'm not talking about the work that I put into this. I was elected to do a job, and I did that job, and I'm continuing to do so. But it's the residents that spent so much time. I'm talking about meetings that went past midnight. And then a subcommittee meeting that would be the next day, and then another subcommittee meeting. To see now this pushback of with the administration and the city council when they were not involved is really disrespectful to the residents. And then the last thing I'll say is that I keep hearing this thing of this term of unfunded mandates. And what I really want folks to take a look at is to read the charter. We do lay out some benchmarks. I will say we do lay out some benchmarks. But when you really look at the language, we tell the city council and we tell the administration to come up with plans, right? So one thing we've seen from the administration say, we're saying that we want free Wi-Fi for everybody. That's actually not what's in the charter. What we said is that we should create a volunteer commission of community members and folks who are in telecommunications and delivering broadband to come to deliver some plans to city council and administration to take action, to possibly take action on that, because we have a deep digital divide in this city. And we saw that with the COVID-19 pandemic, when a lot of our children could not even connect to school. Another thing that I'm hearing is that we're trying to give free bus fare to everybody in the city. Now, one thing I will note for folks, public transportation in this country has always been deeply subsidized. Public transportation is not the thing that is supposed to make a profit for an entity. Why? Because folks have a right to get around. And what we have in this city is that you have a city where 50% of folks who do not have cars, and you also have a deeply impoverished city. So when you have that, you don't have folks the ability to get around to jobs and increase opportunity. So what we said, we took the city of Detroit's study on a low income fare, the city of Detroit study. The DDOT did this study. We said, hey, we actually want you to take action on this to see what is feasible at this level to implement a low income fare. We didn't say free, we said a low income fare. We have a student fare, we have a senior citizens fare, and I believe we have a veterans one. We're saying take a look at that to increase opportunity. And here's the last point I make, because I was the chair of the public safety and agencies committee. We did change the way that the police chief is selected. And I'm going to tell you why. Right now, the Board of Police Commissioners, and I will make it clear that we have not, we should remind folks that Chief Craig was not actually selected in this process. Chief Craig was selected through emergency management and has been the chief since then. I want to make that clear. But what we said is that you have a civilian oversight commission, the Board of Police Commissioners that we talked about. You have a city council that decides what the department's budget is, and you have a mayor administration who carries out the functions of policing and is where the police department lives. We said, okay, all of those folks have a say in the policing operations of the city, and we said we're going to have the police chief selection on a vote of 3 people: the mayor, the city council president, and the chair of the police commission. And out of the candidates that the police commission puts up, they will be able to decide to vote on who that chief will be. Then beyond that, nothing else changes. The mayor still has the supervisor role, the fire and discipline role, and the department is still within the executive branch. So I just want to make those things clear and the rationale why we make these changes. We find ourselves in a different moment when we're talking about policing, right? And when we find ourselves that we're talking about police budgets, we're talking about misconduct and of oversight of policing. So we said those folks should have a role in hiring. So it's not that we get to a point where tragedies happen and lack of leadership is there, that we actually have the forefront and the ability to ask those questions and have folks involved. So I'll stop there. I know I said a lot, but hopefully that's a good wrap up.
Well, thank you for what you said. I think that really helps, because what ends up happening is the sound bites, because people don't read the long document. And unfortunately, it wasn't really shared widely with the community. In fact, it's really hard even now for people to figure out where to get it. And that's partly, I think, on behalf of the commissioners not really finding a way to because I send information out all the time via email, where you have an email list, and it doesn't cost a whole lot of money to get names. You can purchase them. But I think that there's ways to put it out there through Facebook and really just take some time. And then if there is a short synopsis for people who don't want to read 170 pages, however many pages it is, I think it's important that you guys figure out how to share that information, because that's a lot. And you can't counter specific criticisms with broad general, well, they didn't read it, the details. You have to be as detailed in your responses they were in their critiques. Now, Steve, do you have a more detailed critique about specifics in the charter where you are in disagreement? I know that you said that you believe that the strong mayor is threatening. I have to be honest, I did a workshop with some community members, and we looked at the strength of this mayor. And the mayor in Detroit has almost unlimited powers, really, in comparison to many other mayors. It's a super strong mayor, especially when you have council by district.
You ready? One of my problems is it really actually removes the mayor from the process of developing the city's master plan. He shouldn't be out of that process. Okay. He shouldn't be out of it. He should be a part of that process in developing that master plan. Now, there's some horrible mistakes where his power has just gotten out of hand. You mentioned one of them with the whole assembling of the FCA land. Okay. The corresponding bike lanes on Connor when you have major industry there. You just don't have enough room on Connor for everybody. Okay. But removing him from the process entirely, developing the master plan, I think that's a mistake. I also think taking his power down when selecting the chief of police, that's a mistake. If I'm mayor, I want to select the head of my paramilitary force. Okay, that's what I want. What you've done now is you got a lot of hands in that pie of selecting the head of the paramilitary force. All right, yes, you're supposed to have a nationwide search and all that stuff, but it's his decision who leads the paramilitary force. Those are my major problems with it at this point.
Can you cite where it says that the mayor is not involved in the creation of the master plan?
It basically is sitting there. It happens that it gives the power to the unelected city planning commission, who's appointed by and tasked for with approving the city's master plan, the city council. Okay, that plan, the mayor's power is given to them. You know, in being part of the city, in part of developing the city's master plan.
When is the last
That's a problem, and we're actually seeing this.
The city's master plan been updated?
It's being constantly updated in small parts. We're watching this happen in the Eastern Market right now.
Plan update. That's in fact, many people who are planners have said that you cannot update a master plan one neighborhood at a time. The whole concept of a master plan is that you have to have the master plan for the entire city.
This is what is happening right now, though, Donna.
No, not according to any urban planners that I know. The urban planners that I know say that the city.
What's going on in the city, though?
The city. I mean, I work in community development, and so we've been asking for updates to the master plan since I've been at ECN in 2016, and we keep being promised it's going to be done. Maurice Cox announced they had no plans to update the master plan, and by not updating the master plan, what that does is it gives the mayor the power and the authority to do spot planning, because the master plan says this is what the city is going to look like, not this is what this neighborhood is going to look like. You can't update Jefferson Chalmers and not come up with a plan for the streets across the street from Jefferson Chalmers and call that a master plan update. Because what is your plan for all of these areas that are not in strategic communities? There is none. And that's not a master plan. There's no housing plan for the city. There's no transportation plan for the city. There is no plan for how we're going to deal with so many things. And so I think the idea is to ensure that it gets done. Right now, the mayor has the power to do it, and the mayor has chosen not to adopt the master plan. And it's even when you receive HUD funding, you're supposed to be updating your master plan for HUD funding. So I think there is a responsibility to do it. And I know that the City Planning Commission believes there's a responsibility to do it. I would love to evaluate, and I'm going to look this up between now and our next show, how other cities do the master planning process to ensure the inclusion of city voices. But I think that the goal of the master plan is equitable use of land. And we don't have that right now. We don't even have a plan for it.
I'm glad you said the word equitable, because one of the undercurrents of this conversation to me begs this question in my brain, and that is, what function of city government currently is working on a systemic plan for equity in the city of Detroit? Is it in the mayor's office? Is it in city council? I think we have been absent actualizing and realizing a systemic equitable plan for that benefits all residents in the city of Detroit. So what happens, this is just, my opinion though, but what happens absent a real equitable agenda in the city of Detroit, you have an election of charter members who are now in position and is a piece or function of city government trying to now enact and legislate equity. My question is legislating equity a function of the Charter Review Commission?
Well, what I'll put forth is that I wouldn't go so far as say we were legislating equity. I think what we're trying to do is create the structures that will put forth equity in our government, right? I think what we're trying to do with the charter is actually have it line up with the Declaration of Rights that was read at the start. Even in the 2012, if you looked at the 2012 charter, there were some areas that we took a look and said, well, we can beef up how to set up that structure. And I think, Orlando, I think you have the right assessment that there has not been a dedicated even conversation on how equity looks in this in the city. You have had, as has been talked about, how do we get tax dollars to stadiums and projects for corporations instead of how do we get our tax dollars to actually lift up those who are the least of these. So that's what we yes, we did attempt, and I think with the commission that was, I mean, again, if you look at the commission, not everybody is I would say this far left liberal type of ideals, right? Share those ideals, but what we do have, and what we have as a commission, is that we saw that these issues were happening. We have residents and folks telling us that these issues were happening, and wanted to come forth with proposals on how the charter will address those.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, is there any legitimate claims on part of Governor Whitmer and the Attorney General in their rejections? Anything that they said valid in your view?
So what I will say is that our general counsel is taking a look at all of those actual things that came back from the Attorney General. I think, in my view, as I read through it, I disagree with the governor's letter to say that they were severe legal deficiencies. I disagree with that description of the charter. Are there areas that we can look at and say, oh, let's make sure that this is clear or provide some clarity? Sure, and we are actually going to take those steps to do that, right? We're going to have the meetings before the deadlines to do those things. But what I will say about this is that if you look at the Attorney General's analysis and you look at the governor's letter, it does seem that, instead of engaging with the commission, what we had the administration do is to put out this false alarm that this would cost $3.4 billion to the residents. And we immediately pushed back on that, right? And then we pushed back on it, and then during the discussion draft, because this is the discussion draft phase, we still make changes again to clarify things. We didn't make substantive changes to change what we wanted to actually do. Then the city comes back and say, oh, they changed some things, so now it's $2 billion. First of all, we did not make $1.4 billion worth of changes. And that change only came because we pushed back and called into question the numbers. So what I'm trying to put forth here is that I do agree with Donna that it has been this type of trying to scare folks with bankruptcy. Because that's actually not what's going on in this charter. We actually don't have mandates that will throw the city into bankruptcy. We have structures and policies to say you should work towards this, right? We put that, and the other thing that I want to say is that we're having a discussion about the charter, which we should be having, and not everybody is going to agree with every part of the charter. I think one thing is that, Steve says the paramilitary force. A lot of residents that came to us to say they didn't want the police force to be a paramilitary entity, and that they wanted efforts to demilitarize the police in a way, because they didn't feel that we should have tanks on our streets, right? So we looked at those things, but even the conversation that we're having today is what the Charter Commission wants to have. But we are now faced, we put forth, and I know Steve is in media, I know you all are in media, we are on this podcast, we put forth a budget for this year that will actually allow us to send out those summary of revisions that Donna talked about that will actually allow us to send out things to educate folks, to have various forms of media avenues to educate folks. And we had the mayor's office first. We submitted $996,000 for a budget for a full year and communications. We had the mayor then submit to city council to say we only needed 500 and I think it was 560 or something thousand. And then we had the Scott Benson try to cut it to 177,000. And finally the city council said, oh, well, we'll give you 300,000. So now what we're faced with in the budget is not the ability to really have that robust education, but also recognizing, as Donna said, that we do have to get creative and still get that information out there with or without the budget.
So I want to just hone in on a couple of things. First of all, it's the Constitution, and it's what enshrines rights with people. If you just look at what's happening across the world, you have homelessness, you have water wars, you have environmental injustice that's happening. That is the status quo. You have global warming and the underutilization of public transit. If we're going to anyway approach justice, we're going to have to make it structural. We can't just rely on good leadership. Good leaders have to have new structures in order to do things differently. We can't incrementally address the housing crisis that we've talked about repeatedly on our show, whether it is the fact that we don't have enough affordable housing or the existing housing is in terrible shape. And there is no resource right now that exists to invest in housing that is affordable to many people. So we can debate the details. And I read through what the Attorney General had to say, and I read through what the city had to say, the legislative unit or whatever for city council. Here's what I see. There are a couple of areas where I agree there's a legal conflict. One of them is the residency. Residency, I don't know that you can do that, right? So if you have a law and you can't do it and the citizens, enact it, then it's unenforceable. But that does not really harm anything, because what the citizens could then do is then work to try to change state law so that you can reverse it. And in the event that you can reverse it, residency will already be on the book. So I think that one of the questions is whether or not some of these aspirational things in the charter proposal are really poison pills and really force a conflict, or whether they are opportunities for future changes to governance such that you can have things be positive in a different kind of way. The only concern I have is, although I understand that there's opportunities for change, my understanding is May 11th is the deadline. And so if my math is correct, that's 1 week from today. And there's not a lot of time to really put in a lot of fixes and get it before review. So I hope that, and you have, 5 attorneys all together between Lamont Satchel and the 4, you guys can fix it, right? And I think that going halfway and at least attempting to fix it and to clarify those areas, which I looked at, and some of them were interpretive. Some of them were like really, really picky, like wordsmithing. When you say general election, it's a primary election. Well, that's a word change. You can do that with, Google. But I think that the biggest question for me, because I agree, this is substantive change. And this means that any future mayor will no longer have the power of any past mayor. And the question I have is whether or not any past mayor has ever had the tools, resources, and will to push against a financialized urban environment, to push against corporate influence such that we've achieved justice. If we can go back to a time, we can look back to a period of time in our history and say, well, this is a period of time where Detroit was a just city, then let's go back to there. But I can't think of one. I'll be honest with you. We talk about paramilitarized policing and we look at all of that. And, Lord knows I love Coleman Young. But under Coleman Young, you had some killer police officers killing folks in the city of Detroit. Under Mayor Archer, it was so bad, Mayor Archer asked for the feds to come in and begin investigating our own police department. Our police department was horrible in 1967, but it's never been good. We were under a consent decree for all of Kwame Kilpatrick's, he had an affair anyway, but we were under a consent decree for all of his time. So for me, it's like, are we going to pretend like we can just make things good by replacing the mayor with somebody else, or replacing city council people? Is it about the people or the structure in our city? And I really hope and pray, Denzel, that you guys get it right and you make the kind of changes and then tell everybody about it, so we don't have to keep on pushing so hard for it in our forums, so that people can consider a different world.
Steve, what say
Absolutely.
you?
I'm sorry.
What say me? I say with 500,000, they aren't going to educate anybody. Okay. I say with 500,000, they aren't going to educate anybody. And even if they fix the problems, $500,000 to get it out is not enough. There are not enough podcasts like this. There are not enough shows like mine to get it out. $500,000 is not going to do it. And I think it was disingenuous of the council to play it, play both ends against the middle. Okay. It's obvious what the mayor was trying to do. All right. Because there are a lot of things that would limit his power right off should he be reelected. Okay. So he naturally wouldn't want it. So he lowers it, but the council shouldn't have played into that. Citizens have a right to make a choice one way or the other. But you can't make an informed decision unless you get all the materials. I'll give you an example. 77,000 people voted in the last primary. Okay. So you'd have to mail out roughly 55,000 pieces to get one to each household. Okay. But that doesn't come anywhere close to the 508,000 registered voters in Detroit. Okay. If you figure 31 cents times 500,000, that's 180,000 right there. TV commercials, outreach meetings, and all that. No way you can educate enough people on the charter changes with $500,000.
Yeah, I mean,
Can't
maybe
be
not.
done.
Maybe not. Maybe that's not how you get things done. I know there are people who've run for office and done things and really surprised everybody. I think that there's social media campaigns, people are being educated in all kinds of ways. And I'm not going to say I think it's doable, but nothing beats failure but a try. And I'm going to try my hardest to do what I can to make sure that we change the structures that govern our city. And if people want to go to court and say, we don't like this piece and we don't like that piece, it's not all or nothing. People can say, this provision doesn't work, and then it's moot, and it doesn't change the rest of it. But I think that the Bill of Rights that is articulated at the beginning of the charter, and I think that many of the pieces say, let's do things differently. Well, let's make sure that we elect city council people. City council people appoint a planning commission, and the planning commissioners I know are outstanding public servants who don't have a political agenda, who are really working very hard to try to make sure that we create a fair Detroit. Maybe that is where we should put master planning, take it out of politics and put it in the hands of professionals who are appointed. And, most of them are not appointed year to year. They survive different mayoral terms. So I think it's not necessarily a bad idea to have public servants do that. I'm going to make sure I read the whole thing. And Denzel, I really want to thank you for being willing to explain what you can. I really want to ask you, is there anything we don't know that we should know about the charter? Or Orlando, maybe you can ask your question and I'll come back to that.
No, Donna, before you move on, I wanted to double back on the education comment. And one of the things that, I'm thinking about and have had conversations about is, some of the circles that we find ourselves running around in. We have the engaged community development community, we have the activist community, we have the grassroots community. And oftentimes, those communities tend to lean a bit more progressive and feel a certain way about a certain initiative that's being put forth, whether it is the charter review, whether it is the blight bond, or whether it was proposal A or B for the community benefits agreements. And so we go around and we do our best as communicators, as activists, as media, to make sure that folks are educated about these certain things, and things like what we thought was a more equitable community benefits agreement failed by voters. the blight bond that has a lot of questions around equity was passed by voters. And I can go on about other measures that we thought had, a broad base of pushback that wouldn't be passed, that passed by significant margins. Do you think the majority of Detroiters are really keyed in and tuned in to the issues of equity that the Charter Commission is trying to provide a check and answer for? And if so, is this something that voters will pass? Why aren't these agendas, these equity agendas, or things that are seen by the activist community, community development community as something that's not good for community passing or not passing?
Well, I mean, I think that for proposal A and proposal B, it sounded like you're going to get community benefits either way. The mayor has a well-funded campaign, and proposal B, he's able to, I mean, he got on the ballot teaching people how to spell his name. He's got skills, okay? Like, whether that you believe it or not, everybody doesn't spell Duggan, okay? It's like that was gifted. When it comes to neighborhood improvement bond, it's kind of hard to fight neighborhood improvement. He renamed it the blight bond, to the extent when I was talking about neighborhood improvement as opposed to blight. And anyway, that advocacy contributed to renaming it. I'm going to take that to my grave as a mistake to even try to help negotiate with somebody who will just take your good ideas and use them. Not saying that it's because of me, but if I in any way influence it, it bothers me. But I think that, justice doesn't mean I want blighted homes across the street from me. I get that. I always got that. If I'm living in a blighted community and somebody says they're going to tear down these broken homes and nobody has an alternative solution to propose before me, then it's either this or nothing else. But here's the deal. This charter commission is proposing a Detroiters Bill of Rights, and nobody's coming up with an alternative and saying, you know what, you don't need this Bill of Rights. We're going to give you something else. So you're actually running against yourselves. If you sell it the right way and you help motivate people, I think people may hear that differently than they heard other things. And that's by no means a guarantee, because you're right, Orlando, we are, all of us, more socially aware and able to figure these things out. But I think let's just try.
No, I definitely think that there should be a massive effort to educate folks. The only is just something that I think about. And the other point that I wanted to make was around Donna's point around running against yourself. I don't think they're running against. I don't think the education campaign is running against itself. I think the mayor waking up traumatic experiences for citizens in this city with words like bankruptcy and cascading that kind of narrative could be very effective. Right? And so, yeah, it's definitely worth a try. Donna, I'll let you ask your closing question.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think we've got to push back hard against bankruptcy. I think Detroiters need to know why we went bankrupt. I think they need to understand where the $18 billion of debt came from, the credit swaps, and the fact that nobody went to jail for any. This is Wall Street. Anybody who lost their home, right? Anybody who had their house foreclosed upon and lost their home to mortgage foreclosure because you had a mortgage, a predatory loan, should understand what predatory lending looks like. And this city engaged in predatory borrowing. And that predatory borrowing could not be repaid. It's documented. It's not my opinion. Yes, Detroit was always struggling up until then, but we got into a predatory situation. And again, I think it's important that people understand what the state constitution says. And the state constitution says that the city is required to adopt balanced budgets, I believe. And if that is the case, then all of this scaremongering can be addressed. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, because you're going to be running against people who know how to get people to spell Duggan. But all I'm saying is that in the event that what we're able to do is educate people about what the Constitution actually says and what the Constitution will protect, it doesn't mean if Detroit runs afoul of the law, it won't be the first time. In fact, even in the Attorney General's argument, the city of Taylor adopted a residency requirement that was struck down by the Michigan Supreme Court. but Taylor still exists. And Taylor is not in receivership because of that. You can strike down a provision of an ordinance if it runs afoul of the law. The other opportunity, though, is that the city could decide to fight some of the state constitutional provisions that are harmful to the city, and perhaps state law could change.
And the final point that I would put, I think, just to touch on the residency, I think residency is that point that you saw folks come to us and say, we want residency requirement. And we had the conversation of there is a law that's conflicted with this. I mean, in the analysis, what the Attorney General said is that it could run afoul of the residency law, but what we did we put a residency point system, right? As we're thinking about hiring, right? So they said that could be in violation of the law. But on the flip side, what we did for firefighters and police officers, because we got a lot of folks talking about residency for police officers, the law does provide that you can put what's called an on-call distance, right? So we at least put that in the charter to have folks to say like, oh, this is a requirement. I have to live closer to the city. You should live in the city, right? But the thing that I will put on this overall point on the charter, you're absolutely right. We have to find ways to educate folks. We have some realities that we are facing that we do not have a lot of money to educate folks. I agree there. Hopefully we can build up some support and creative ways to do that, but we're at a disadvantage there. We do have the mayor going out and using his bully puppet to scaremonger around bankruptcy. But here's what I will say to Donna's point, and to answer Orlando's question. I do think Detroiters are in the mindset and in the place that they are demanding equity. They may not talk about it in the same ways that we're talking about it on this podcast. They may have different conversation that may be coming up in different ways and that impact their lives, right? And I think if we had a case that it was best case scenarios, we would be able to run an education program that spoke to those conversations. But I do think Donna brings up a point. I am going to do all that I can to push that this charter is passed. But if this charter does not pass, we're still going to be facing the issues that we tried to address in this charter. And for all the folks that are out against the charter, and for the mayor and the city council that are against this charter, they're still going to have to answer these questions, whether or not you have a new charter or not, right? And so I agree with Donna that, and that's been the most disappointing part of this process, to be honest with you all, is that we didn't have debates at the table between the city council and the mayor's office on what would work. They waited till now to go out and scare people on bankruptcy, instead of having the conversation about whether or not we need a low income fare for public transportation, or how do we get folks around our city to increase opportunity. They didn't have that conversation. So where we are now is that we have a charter that we're trying to put forth for the people, and now they have a concerted effort to even not have folks have a say on the ballot. And that's an issue. And I think folks should be upset at that part as well, because it's undemocratic. It's against the process that they will then go out and say, oh, vote for me, but they don't want folks to have an opportunity to vote on this charter. That's the issue that we should also be talking about as well.
So you guys have until May 11th to resubmit to Governor Whitmer and the Attorney General?
We have until May 11th to submit ballot language on to the ballot for this charter.
Oh, ballot language. So we will not be going back
for the ballot. We will be taking a look and sending and taking action to send back if that's the will of the commission. But I just want the May 11th date is coming up because that's the deadline we have to submit to the ballot, to submit to the city clerk. The issue we're having now is that the Corporation Council has told the city clerk that because the governor didn't approve, we can't get on the ballot. We have a different reading of the statute of the Home Rule City Act that says that we can. The Attorney General in the analysis said that we can, and now the Corporation Council is saying that we cannot. And that's what I mean of this attempt to even deny voters the right to vote on whether or not they want this charter.
That's the city's lawyer, Lawrence Garcia, who is the Corporation Counsel. I want to make sure that we're kind of translating some of these terms.
Lawrence Garcia.
The same guy who led the lawsuit against Detroit Will Breathe that fell miserably in the federal courts, as well as all of the other lawsuits and charges led against all of the protesters this past summer, where Detroit led the way in legal attacks on protesters, or taking away rights of protesters in a city that has been known for activism. To have our corporation counsel do that is repulsive to me. And so to have him also try to take away people's right to vote is one thing. To say we don't like this, we don't think you should vote for this. But when the attorney general has spoken and said, this is not, this can go on the ballot, for him to cherry pick her disagreements and not acknowledge that issue is simply wrong. There's 5 attorneys there, and I hope to see them in court if that does not go on the ballot. I don't know that there's a recourse, though. If somehow this doesn't go on the ballot, it just seems as though this will be one of those things where it's a Pyrrhic victory. So I hope he does not prevail. But I know that politics being what they are, you're going to have to work with the Wayne County clerk in order to get the Wayne County clerk and the Wayne County Commission to make an independent decision. And it'll be very interesting to see how our local politics play out in an effort really to upend democracy and say that Detroit is going to lead the way in protecting the rights of its people. But you know, Detroit has led the way for many years and in many ways, and I'm confident we can do so again if we all work really hard at it.
Detroit is Big Mama, in the words of Simone Lightfoot. Our thanks to radio and television personality Steve Hood and Charter Commissioner Denzel McCampbell for joining us. If you have topics that you want discussed on our show, you can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Authentically Detroit, or email us at authenticallydetroit.com. Hey, Donna, D Business published their 30 in their 30s list, and a few friends of ours are on there. Shout out to Rachel Allen at the Marygrove Conservancy for making that list. Shout out to our friend Stephen Welch for making that list. And of course, a frequent guest on our show here, Chase Cantrell. Shout out to you for making that 30 in their 30s list. Congrats, guys. Go off. We're happy for you. Donna, you have any shout outs?
Yeah, Charity, oh my goodness, Charity
Bean
just opened up. I just saw a picture of her new business office downtown, and it's going to be beautiful. The way she described it to us, I thought it was going to be a nice small little office, but it's going to be a beautiful resource center for Black businesses across the city. So shout out to her. And shout out to ECN. We had our annual meeting last week, and I felt good about it. A lot of work. I was listening to what the staff said they did. I was like, y'all do a lot. So shout out to ECN staff.
We always do.
For holding it down so I can't take vacation. You cannot overestimate what it is to have the kind of staff people who work through a pandemic, who work virtually, and let you take vacations, and you never have to worry that the work won't get done because people are committed, you know. So it takes teamwork to make a dream work, and we have a team. We have some exciting things that are being planned for our Stoudemire Wellness Hub, and I just can't even, I can't speak about the gratitude I have for what I believe may be some of the support coming our way from so many different places. People who are trying to sow into the health and wealth of Detroiters. And shout out to every Detroiter who decided to get a vaccine. We need more of you to stand in line. The lines aren't even that long because so many people are either hesitant or resistant to vaccines. But for everybody who has gotten the vaccine and made it easier for us to breathe safely and hopefully open soon. Detroit is the worst governmental unit in the state of Michigan in terms of getting vaccines, and we need to reverse that.
All right. Thank you again to our guests, Steve Hood and Denzel McCampbell. We thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Catch the wave.